It's not every day you come across a pixelated game that can create an incredible sense of atmosphere and a well thought up plot. We are well concealed in an era of gaming where games don't have to be well rendered or visually stunning to be effective storytellers. Think of games such as One Chance, a choose-your-own-adventure style narrative of a scientist on a 6-day quest to cure a virus that will kill every living thing on planet Earth, making decisions whether to spend your last days with your family or go to work under the assumption that you'll find the cure before it takes over and kills everyone you love. Even though its gameplay is packaged into a simplistic style flash game, it was quick to cause a stir in the indie game community due to its harsh moral decisions and a sense of isolation. Some indie horror games are no exception to using the pixelated or poorly rendered style and, nevertheless, are incredible at constructing immersive gameplay. One such game I've come across in my search for the scariest indie horror game is a series by CrackedGhostGames and Raster Entertainment called Consternation, and the latest game in the series being Consternation II. Hey, there's my wall. In the game, you play as an urban explorer, searching the vast maze-like expanse of an abandoned factory in search for paranormal activity. However, the walls of the factory conceal aspects far beyond paranormal, as corpses, hooks and nooses show that the previous attempts of exploration have all been met with tragedy. As the story goes, a woman was found inside the building, murdered from multiple stab wounds. The killer was never found and so the site was walled off. Inside the building, twisting walls and misplaced crates create a huge maze, while the visuals and audio leave you on the edge of your seat throughout the entire journey. Many of the walls contain small crawl spaces as a way to either traverse quickly from room to room or escape your enemy. These spaces can also be used to briefly protect yourself from any nearby villain so that you're not left completely helpless. However, you'll find not all enemies give you the luxury of this option. The first level in the game is a sort of introduction or an interactive cutscene, I suppose, giving you a small sample of the layout of the building as well as the creatures inside. You are equipped with nothing but a flashlight, a night vision camera, and your own wits. Much like a real-life flashlight, you have the option of having a short or narrow beam of light, meaning that you can regularly switch between the two to get a better sense of location. Alternatively, you can use the night vision camera, which is basically the same as having the narrow and wide beam on simultaneously. However, watch the number in the top right hand corner because the battery drains every time you use it. I found this especially useful for situations where I needed to find a particular item, which is the main premise of the game, but the concept of the conservation meant that the flashlight wasn't completely useless. The game doesn't completely leave you in the dark, as it also offers a map of the level area with a tap of the E button, pinpointing boxes, crawl spaces and exits, but never shows the item you're searching for. That is up to you, the player, to explore and discover. The main levels in the game are 3 stages of varying difficulty, each stage utilising new methods of escape and evasion, such as collecting keys from the bodies of victims, inserting coloured orbs into slots on the wall, and finding levers to open sewer gates. The layout of these areas is really off-putting and tormenting. Certain sections of the mazes are there just to toy with your nerve, such as this area in the first primary level that I like to dub the Corkscrew. This section contains no important item or plot device. Its only purpose is to create an atmosphere of uncertainty and claustrophobia, because if the enemy finds you in this section, you can only run one direction. The game contains 3 monsters that appear one after the other as you progress in the levels, making the difficulty insane in the later levels. The first creature you come across I've named the Butcher, and is believed to be the original murderer who killed the woman in the storyline and the urban explorer in the demo. He appears as a large bald man wearing a green jumper whilst holding his trusty knife. Although this description I've given you seems less like a horror game villain and more like your grandfather on Christmas Day, the pixelated art style makes it a whole lot more eerie when you see those black pinpoint eyes. He, unlike the other monsters, is not technically supernatural and must follow the same principles of maze orientation as you, aside from the fact that he cannot pass through crawl spaces, probably because he's fat. In the next level, another enemy is added alongside the Butcher. This takes the form of a black, silhouetted ghost with a tormented face who screams in anguish if you get too close. Unlike the Butcher, this enemy, let's just call it the Ghost, is a little bit slower and has the ability to pass through walls and crawl spaces. This makes your life a little bit harder, as crawl spaces are no longer a viable save space. However, she has a shorter line of sight, so she's not completely impossible to avoid. The final enemy added on the final level is an absolute nightmare to avoid, so let's call him by his profile. Speedy McSpeedster. I'll call him the Nightmare, and he is super fast. He travels along the passages of the building in random directions, so whether you don't bump into this guy is essentially luck. He is incredibly unpredictable, so this builds the tension of the final level to its absolute maximum. If I was to put this game into a subcategory of horror games, then I'd have to put it in the fear of the dreaded known. The player knows they're in danger and they know who their killer is. This category has a great ability to inflict panic, create unique jump scares, and keep the tension at an all-time high. So what about this game is so appealing to me? What aspects of the game make it so scary, and why put it in my first episode of Scarred? There are multiple reasons for this, but one of the main ones for sure is my fascination with mazes. For me, being trapped inside a maze, running around in panic as you look for the exit, all while being chased by not one, but 3 monsters is just terrifying to me. But maybe that's just me, so what else does this game do well? It didn't take me long to realise that the pixelated rendered style of this game gives the twisted world you're trapped in its own identity, but also in constructing an ambience that leaves you completely paranoid. It gives you that uneasy feeling that everything around you is barely close to reality, and in a sense, hides its intention under a poorly rendered front. I love how the game is played through the perspective of an old video camera, as watching the whole screen glitch and warp when in close contact with the enemies is just creepy. Audio in this game is implemented really well, as that low-pitch hum that drones on through the entire experience brings the tension to a substantial level throughout. Every now and then, a loud pop emanating from what I can only assume to be a disused spray can completely catches you off guard, so you're not left feeling safe for a long period of time. The layout of these levels, as I've mentioned previously, is expansive and dizzying, and that feeling of pure dread when you realise you've lost your sense of location and hit a dead end. As the levels progress, corridors become shorter and shorter, leaving you feeling even more trapped the more you struggle to escape. There are small features of this game that help tremendously in making it scary, aspects such as graffiti on the walls, different colours representing the individuals who've tried and failed to explore the building, in a way, their final words before death. Even the simple task of finding the key to unlock the door has been twisted in such a horrible way. How did the key end up here? Who left chests and orbs? And where did he just go? Going back to that theme of being trapped, the game constantly reminds you that escape is impossible, such as this section, where the game tries to trap you in a room with a noose. This clearly takes notes from the previous game where, in the end, there was really no escape. Of course, a review wouldn't be a review without mentioning the few things that need improvement, so I'll get right onto that. The first one that sticks out the most is the need for a save system, and I'm not the only one who's said this. If you progress in the levels and die, you will still spawn in the level you made it to. However, if you quit the game, then all memory is lost, and you'll have to start from the very beginning. Now, this would be okay, but leading into this next point, the game can be extremely difficult, and replaying the same 3 levels over and over can take away the fear factor and just leave frustration. And with a game that can be so difficult, it's important to have regular save spots to be able to prohibit the loss of progress. Adding a save system would also be beneficial to the developers, because if they wanted to spend time, effort and resources on the final stages of the game, what would be the point if few people ever get to experience it? Finally, this is a little bit of a nitpick on my end, so sorry about that, but I think it would be good to have a marker on the map of your current location. Probably not for the items and definitely not for the enemies, but having a marker for yourself, or at least having the option before you play the game, would make the game more immersive and less confusing. Now, this might sound like complete hypocrisy, because not long ago I said that being lost in a maze in a horror game makes for a great horror experience, but it's worth mentioning that while you use the map, the game is still going on, meaning the enemies are still looking for you. You wouldn't be able to spend long periods of time looking over the map without being caught, so it might be good to just simply have a quick glance for direction and then get on with the rest of the game. Also, memorization might also come to be pointless, as some items in the game are randomly placed, so exploration is still needed to an extent. To summarise, I love Consternation II. The aspects and style of the experience build an incredible atmosphere, and the enemies hidden in the darkness are just terrifying. It honestly does live up to its name. The mazes are challenging, and once you get past the lack of save system, it's actually quite enjoyable to play. It's difficult, yes, but not impossible. I've left out the ending of this game just in case you want to play it for yourself, and if you love mazes and horror games as much as I do, then I highly suggest you check it out. It's up on GameJolt now and I'll link it in the description. I've also heard that a third game is on its way and I'm genuinely excited to play it. I would love to see the continuation of this storyline and maybe some expansion on the characters within, but maybe diverging into a different storyline would be interesting also. Hopefully the save system will be better implemented as well. With that, I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I hope to see all of you in the next one. Bye bye.